Welcome to the Disney Wedding Podcast. This show is brought to you by Carrie Hayward's Fairytale Weddings Guide, the only guidebook and bridal organizer tailored exclusively to Disney's fairytale weddings at Walt Disney World. I'm Carrie Hayward, and each week I feature Disney wedding updates, money-saving tips, and interviews with wedding vendors and real Disney couples. I also cover honeymoons, anniversaries, and engagements at the Disney parks and resorts. Join me now as the Disney Wedding Podcast celebrates romance at Disney destinations. Today on the Disney Wedding Podcast, I'm speaking with Disney bride Lauren Garcia about her wedding at the Wedding Pavilion with a reception at Italy Isola and a dessert party at American Adventure Rotunda. I thought you guys would be interested to hear how she chose these locations and how she planned everything and how it all turned out. So welcome, Lauren.
Hi, it's nice to be here.
Thanks so much for being on the show today. I would love to start at the very beginning and find out how you and your fiancé decided that you wanted to have your wedding at Disney.
So back during COVID, I kind of got him hooked on the Disney wedding show. And I always told him like, oh yeah, when it comes to that time, I would love to be proposed to in front of the castle. So he actually proposed to me in front of Disneyland, and I kind of made him watch those shows just so I could get him onto that aspect of proposing to me in front of the castle, never thinking that it would go further. And when we were driving back from Disneyland, he was the one that suggested it, that we should get married at Disney.
That's amazing. And how did you choose Walt Disney World when you are closer to Disneyland?
So we did look at both aspects because our family was like, well, why not Disneyland? It's so much closer. And when we went to the wedding fair at Disneyland, we realized that one, there's a lot more restrictions there than Disney World. And two, the costs there were so much more expensive for what we could have gotten at Disney World.
Right, that's true. Okay. So then how did your friends and family react when they found out where the wedding was going to be?
For the longest time, they thought it was like a pipe dream and it wasn't really going to happen. They were more just like going with it, thinking that, yeah, it's not really going to happen. But then like when things really started happening, they're like, oh, I guess this really is happening.
How many guests did you invite and how many were able to make the trip?
So we invited about 100. He has a big side of the family. And we had, I want to say 52, 54 come. So it was a decent amount.
And did you set up a room block for your guests?
We did, because his family really wanted to have that room block option. And they wanted something set in stone where I could just send them the information and just tell them these are the rooms we have in the room block. This is where you can go. So we did Hop Century, Animal Kingdom, All-Star Movies, and Coronado.
Got it. Okay. Now, how did you choose the day of the week and time of day for your event?
So we knew going into the wedding that we were going to have kids come to the wedding, and some of them were going to be in that high school, middle school stage. So one, we wanted to make sure that we were respecting the fact that they needed to be back in school closer to finals. And two, we also really wanted to be able to do the park portrait sessions before the park closes at the end of the year for park portrait sessions. So it was really just like when would be like the best aspect for the kids and when would be the best for us. So we kind of just landed on the Wednesday after Thanksgiving. And I think we chose 5:30 because we wanted it to be closer to the fireworks show that we wanted our guests to be able to see rather than having a huge gap in between.
Got it. Okay. How did you choose your ceremony and reception venues?
Mostly the weather, to be completely honest. Our reception venue, our fear was if it rains, we didn't want that secondary location to be something that we did not want, because for a while we were thinking the Tree of Life. But if it rained out, then our options would have been like the Safari Pizza place. So in the end, we kind of went with the Grand Pavilion, and also his family is a little bit more religious, so we kind of like use that one as well. It's not the traditional church ceremony, but it is in a wedding pavilion church aspect. So, and then for our reception location, we actually chose it in mind with the previous fireworks show. And I think that they announced that there was going to be that temporary gap show probably 2 months after we signed our contract. So we didn't know exactly how the fireworks were going to look at our location, but initially when we chose Italy, it was with the fireworks show in mind.
That's interesting. So usually what people do is they go straight from the wedding pavilion to like a cocktail hour at Italy, and then they do their full reception in American Adventure Rotunda. So I would love to know how you decided to have your cocktail hour in the St. James room at the BoardWalk Inn Convention Center, and then your reception at Italy, and then a dessert party at American Adventure Rotunda.
So they kind of just gave us St. James. They just told us, oh, well, we'll have your cocktail hour at St. James. And while you guys are busy taking pictures, they'll be over there. They'll be closer to EPCOT, was their main thought process on that one. We decided on having the cocktail hour separate and then Italy dinner and then American somewhere else because we wanted to have an extra long reception. We wanted a full party, basically. So that's why we kind of went with the cocktail hour at St. James. So that way guests can just quickly get that nibble, maybe a cocktail or two, and then catch the bus over to EPCOT in Italy, where they would be able to enjoy a nice sit-down dinner and kind of relax and talk before the fireworks show, and then the speeches and dancing later in the American Rotunda.
Got it. Now, did you use any outside vendors for the portions of your event that you were able to?
Yes, so we actually used Kimberly Ferris of Heart Happy Films for our videography, Ali Nasser for our photographer, Michelle McKeown for our day of coordinator, and Kevin Knox as our officiant. And then surprisingly, we were actually able to get a lot of Etsy stuff for the reception. We got stuff that we purchased on Etsy for as like the light up table numbers. And then also we did little Minnie and Mickey Christmas ornaments in our colors with the people's names on them, all of our guest names, for them to take as kind of like a little trinket, but also something they would be able to use and remember.
That's great. How did you choose your officiant?
Just kind of goes back to we looked at the ones that had a little bit more of a religious background. So that's kind of why we went with Reverend Kevin Knox. And he was able to kind of tailor the ceremony towards what we want and our religious background while still also keeping it Disney friendly and having different little Disney touches throughout the ceremony.
Okay. Did you add any kind of entertainment to the ceremony or the reception?
I don't know if it would count as entertainment, but we had Cinderella's coach for transportation for us, and everyone loved to see that. Then we also had, obviously, the fireworks. We did a ride mix-in at Ratatouille in between the reception and the dessert party at the Rotunda. And then we also surprised our guests with mariachi.
Oh, that's great. At the American Adventure Rotunda?
Yeah, so his family is a big mariachi banda. They love that type of music. And he surprised his mom with the mother-son dance with the mariachi coming out to play the music. And then we kept that for a little bit, and then we switched back over to a DJ. Our DJ was Willie Lugo.
I would love to talk about how you chose your menus for your different events. One thing I think a lot of people aren't aware of is that the sample menus that Disney sends you are just samples and you can pretty much have anything you want. And I noticed that you mentioned that when you went to the menu tasting event, you brought a bunch of older menus that you printed out from my website, which if anybody's interested, I have scores of old menus on fairytaleweddingsguide.com. And then you talked to the chef about them. And I was wondering if you could tell my listeners a little bit about how that worked.
Yeah, so I actually, like you were saying, I went to your website and I went through and printed out all the old menus and the current menus that they gave us. And then when we went to the menu tasting, we had a whole binder. And we kind of pretty much like had an ideal of all the different like menus and different items we wanted from the menus. The only thing we didn't see was both of us really enjoy potatoes au gratin. And when we went there, we talked to the chef and I just started pulling out all these old menus. And I was like, well, I want this one from this menu and I want this from that menu. And is it possible to just get this? And he was pretty much like, yeah, we can do whatever you want. So even, for example, our welcome party, we kind of designed that menu completely with our own taste in mind. So my husband actually owns a Mexican restaurant. And my dad and my mom own a catering company. So we're really big into food, but knowing that he really enjoys tacos. So we kind of went with like a Mexican with a slight Asian fusion for our welcome party. And we basically told him like, these are the tacos we want. This is kind of like what we want on the sides. And he just created the menu based off of what we wanted.
That's awesome. Do you have any specific items that you would recommend?
Oh, yeah. So we had a really good fish at our reception. It was a mahi mahi with like a citrus and avocado gremolata. And then surprisingly, we had a couple vegetarians. So I put this vegetarian paella on the menu and everyone was raving about it. Even like the people that were not vegetarians, they're like, yeah, we just tried a little bit and oh, it was so good. And then at our dessert party, we had a kind of like a round the world dessert buffet, and the UK sticky toffee pudding was amazing. It was like to die for. And then at the cocktail reception, all of our cocktail food was really good. I really enjoyed the smoked duck with the mandarin citrus glaze crostini. And of course, you can never go wrong with the cheeseburger spring rolls.
So then did you guys have a cake?
Yeah, so we also had a cake. And the cake flavor we actually surprisingly enjoyed was the lavender cake. Like when we did the cake tasting, we each got our own tasting box. And we kind of decided to throw like one flavor in there that we didn't really think we would like, but we've heard a lot of good things about it. So we're like, let's go ahead and try it. For me, it was the lavender cake. And for him, it was the tropical citrus cake. And we tried the lavender cake with the guava cream cheese filling and also with the lemon cream and blueberries. And those ended up being like our top two picks. And then we also had a tropical citrus cake with a guava cream cheese filling too.
Got it. Okay. Can you also tell my listeners a little bit more about your welcome party?
Yeah, so we actually ended up having it at Hollywood Studios because we wanted our guests to be able to enjoy something that was completely different. Mind you, initially I was really pushing to get it at Animal Kingdom so I could do the safari ride mix-in. But they unfortunately told me that that was a no-go. So when I asked my other options, they told me EPCOT or Hollywood Studios. And since I figured my reception was already at EPCOT, I decided to go with Hollywood Studios. So we did that with a Fantasmic showing. But they did tell us, like less than a week before our welcome party, that the time for our welcome party was changing. So then we had to basically let all 54 of our guests know that the time was now I think it was about an hour and a half earlier than planned. And also we had to rush to change our photography, our videography, and also our rehearsal.
And was that just due to the showtime, or why did it change?
So they decided to add a second showing. And whenever they add a second showing, all welcome parties or events are now at the first showing. Yeah. So that threw a little bit of a wrench in, especially because we had people flying in that day. But I think for that one, we did pretty much bare minimum. We really wanted our guests to just be able to enjoy the show, enjoy the time, and kind of just be able to hang out and just see a Disney show that's also completely different than the show we'd be able to see in Disneyland, since pretty much every single one of our guests were from California. So most of them have been to Disneyland at least once in their life, but have never been to Disney World. So this was kind of like a chance for them to see a different viewing of Fantasmic.
Interesting. Okay. Can you give my listeners a timeline of how the wedding day ran?
My bridal party, we got ready. Our time to get up was 8 a.m. with hair and makeup. We pretty much had food set up the whole day before, so we just pretty much just pulled out all the food and we were just kind of grazing all day. But our hair and makeup team, which was Stacy Otto, amazing. I cannot say enough good things about her. She pretty much got my vision, and she was pretty much seeing me every day for different events, from the Monday before my wedding all the way up until pretty much the day I left. She came in with one of her teammates and pretty much got everything done. Photography and videography came in at about noon for us to start taking pictures and to start doing all that. We were staying at Animal Kingdom. Luckily enough, my husband's room was, I think, about 5 down from me, so the videography and photography did not have to go too far in between the rooms. But from there, we got picked up. I think my husband and his party got picked up at about 3:45, because we had a limo come by, pick up the groom and his family at 3:45. And then we came down pretty much as soon as they left I did a first look with my dad. So we did that in the lobby, and they came back and picked us up at about 4:15. And then from there, they took us to the pavilion, and our ceremony was at 5:30. We were done about 6:05 maybe, and did the carriage photos, and then we went into the Grand Floridian lobby to take bridal pictures, family portraits, and we tried to get as much done between the staircase, the Christmas tree, and also the gingerbread house. And then our guests also, they started getting picked up at about 4 o'clock. And then once the reception was done, we had the big charter buses take our guests over to St. James, to the BoardWalk, where they had cocktails, they had little hors d'oeuvres, and we took all the pictures. And then once we were there, we pretty much got picked up at about 7 o'clock at St. James to go to EPCOT. And we were transported backstage to EPCOT and went to Italy from there. And it was about 7 to 9:30, 9:45 when the show finished. And from there, we got back on the bus, and they took us to the backstage of France to go on Remy's. And then once we were all done with Remy's, they put us back on the bus over to America, where we got off. And then we were pretty much partying until 1:30.
Wow, that sounds great. When you were planning, what were some of the most important aspects where you focused your attention and budget? It sounds like food was pretty important.
Food and entertainment, for sure. It was definitely those two things. We are both really big foodie people, so we knew going into it that food was going to be our number one choice. And entertainment, we wanted the guests to be able to see why we love Disney, why Disney is like our happy place, and why we enjoy like going to Disney World multiple times, Disneyland multiple times. So it was definitely, those were the two most important things for us.
Got it. And then were there any aspects that were less important where you saved your money or just your effort?
Probably floral and decor. Like, we knew going in that our floral and decor was going to be on the low end. We just kind of wanted bare minimum. Didn't really spend much on that.
What ended up being your favorite memory of your wedding day?
I mean, the whole thing definitely, but probably walking down the aisle to see my husband and knowing that it was basically the start of our lives together.
That's wonderful. Did anything go wrong or just not turn out like you expected?
Yeah, so there was actually a couple things. We had an issue with the room block. Going into the 30-day mark where we had to, make those changes or basically make sure that everything was correct, I noticed that the numbers looked off. So I actually called our coordinator up and I was like, hey, can you take a look at the numbers? The numbers just don't look correct. And she looked at the numbers and she's like, oh yeah, everything's correct. And you're just like, I think they told us like 3 nights shy of getting our second room free. So we were like, okay, perfect. So we actually went and booked 3 nights for his cousin because it was cheaper for us to book 3 nights on our lowest room block than it was to pay for an extra night at the hotel of our choice. Well, they called us up a week before the wedding. Actually, no, they emailed us a week before the wedding and said we were 20 nights short and that we were going to be paying for the second night of our room block. So when I'm calling up and I'm like, no, like I talked to you on, 2 days before the 30-day mark. You said everything looked good. It was 3 nights short. So we paid for those 3 nights. And she was trying to tell us, well, no, it was because you had cancellations. And I was like, yes, but those cancellations evened out because those people that canceled rebooked in another hotel in our room block. And basically they said due to a computer error, we would still have to pay. Yeah, so they told us that the week before the wedding. So that was a major issue. And then when we went into the reception, I noticed that the tables, when I did the table designs and like where everyone was going to be seated, I sat one set of parents on one side of us and the other side of parents on the other side of us. Well, when we sat down at our table, I noticed it was his family, his parents, and then my parents were all the way on the other side. So I told him, I was like, oh no, like that's not going to do. Like either you're going to have to move our table or you're going to have to move my parents' table. So they ended up basically just moving their table number and just switch table numbers with his family. So that way the parents were back to where it should have been. But that was an issue. And then on our cake, we wanted fresh flowers. And I specifically stated to our event planner and then also to the cake person at the tasting menu that this is what I wanted. And I even showed pictures. And they took the pictures, so they knew exactly like what I kind of wanted. And they said it wasn't going to be an issue. And then when I showed up to the wedding, there was no flowers on the cake. And when I asked about it, they said, well, that's something you had to have told the floral department. And I kind of told them, I was like, well, no one told me that when I talked to both the event planner and I talked to both chefs. And they said, well, unfortunately, that's just something that has to be taken care of with the floral team.
That's weird because if the chefs were taking the pictures of the flowers, you would think that they would at least think you wanted gum paste flowers or something, like fake flowers that they were going to make for you.
Yeah, and I mean, I basically told them, like, whatever the cheaper option was, fresh flowers or gum paste, like, I want flowers on the cake. And they ended up, because I made my bridesmaids bouquets, and they took the fake flowers out of my bridesmaids bouquets and put them on the cake where they technically were supposed to go. But the issue was I just had had red flowers that I wanted on the cake, and they did a mix of the yellow and the red. So I'm like, well, they tried to fix it, but it just kind of looked worse.
Mm.
So I kind of couldn't help but laugh, but I'm like, it just made the cake look worse.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah, so those were like the main issues I had. And then I did hear from a couple of my guests that the hors d'oeuvres were on the cold side when they got there. I mean, I don't know how much of that was true or not, but that's what I did hear from them too. So
Interesting. Now, was there anything that seemed like a big deal beforehand or you were worried about, and then it turned out not to be a big deal?
the weather at the welcome party, probably because it ended up that we had the two coldest nights in the month of November for our welcome party and our reception, which were both outside. So we ended up just ordering a bunch of heaters. And the day of the welcome party, I actually Instacarted 50 blankets from Five Below. So those all got delivered, and then I handed them out as we were waiting outside to be taken up to the location. And it wasn't too bad because of the way the mountain was. It blocked a lot of the wind we would have gotten.
Oh, interesting. Okay. And then is there anything you would have done differently knowing what you know now?
Told Floral about the flowers that I wanted on my cake.
Right.
Possibly ordered more blankets for the day of the wedding because it was pretty chilly. Disney ended up bringing us blankets, not enough for each guest, so we kind of had to pick and choose who got the blankets. But there definitely was not enough space heaters for that location, and we were maxed out on space heaters. So there was that. Definitely got more blankets for sure.
Wow. Okay. Do you have any other tips or advice for future Disney couples?
Do what you want because the sky's the limit for you. And obviously, I know budget-wise it may not be, but if you know there are certain things of your wedding that you want, don't be afraid to voice it. For us, we knew our menus that we wanted going in, and we weren't afraid to ask. And you can never be afraid to ask them if they can do something for you. Like, we pretty much asked all the way up until the week of if we could have Animal Kingdom as our welcome party. And I mean, yes, they still said no, but it didn't hurt for us to ask.
Got it. Okay. Well, Lauren, I think you've offered a lot of great tips and advice for anyone who's interested in getting married or having a vow renewal at Walt Disney World, and I appreciate your taking the time.
Thank you so much, and it was so great to talk to you.
That's our show for today. I'm your host, Carrie Hayward, inviting you to join me again next week for another episode of the Disney Wedding Podcast. Past shows and tons of photos for each episode are available on my website, DisneyWeddingPodcast.com, or listen in your favorite podcast app. And for instant answers to all your Walt Disney World wedding questions, check out Carrie Hayward's Fairytale Weddings Guide, available as an interactive ebook with continual free updates at fairytaleweddingsguide.com.